Hey fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. I moved locations because they're installing floor in my office right now. Anyway, you're watching on SIFTD. I'm hopeful that you are a Patreon patron and you're getting this real time. If you are not doing that, or even if you are doing that, sign up for Amazon Prime and link that to your Twitch Prime account. Amazon will pay us if you link your Amazon account with your Twitch account. The instructions are in the show description. If you're doing neither of those, you're getting this a week late on YouTube. You can subscribe on YouTube and we'll manage to let you get that early as well. If you don't subscribe, then you just have to wait for your dose of pack love in an extra week. Let's get to today's question from Patreon from CJ. Will there ever be press conferences with live audiences again, or are we going to get these pre-recorded VOD showcases with no live audience forever? PlayStation's old E3 events had a lot more energy that would help players get hyped for the products being showcased. I am hopeful as we move beyond COVID, we'll get a few in-person events again. Do you miss them? Yeah, I miss them tremendously. I actually wrote a note yesterday with an E3 preview saying there is no E3, but I'm hosting a virtual conference with 15 or 20 companies, and I'm doing interviews with the CEOs of a bunch of companies, and big ones, and actually starting tomorrow. And I forwarded it to Stan Pierre-Louis, who is the head of the ESA, and I said it really pained me to say there's no E3, and I don't want to say that again next year. Hope you're well. And he wrote back, stay tuned for announcements about 2023. That's all I know. So the answer is yes, E3 is coming back next year. Don't know how. I don't know what's going to happen. I will say this as bluntly as I can say it. Sony f***ed it up for everybody. Okay, Sony pulling out of E3. Their attitude that their money is better spent on these stupid, taped events. They're crazy. I think the reveal all coming in a concentrated period of time, having these events that are by appointment at a certain time, it's real time, it gets the press focused, it's just a smart thing for publicity. And again, I think the spectacle kind of forces everybody at E3 to do it, and it's competitive. And I think having everybody in one place live doing it is really important. It's really good for the industry. I think the crazy thing, and I've talked about this a bunch before, the ESA doesn't exist to put on E3. The ESA exists to make sure that government regulators don't punish the games industry for things like the Uvalde school shooting. And I actually, I was watching MSNBC, and a lawyer who represented the Sandy Hook parents in a lawsuit against the gun maker flat out stated to the anchor Joy Reid that the shooter was a fan of Call of Duty and he was desensitized to killing people because he routinely shot people in Call of Duty. And that pissed me off, because if you're an 18-year-old man, boy, and you don't play Call of Duty, there's something wrong with you. So, how many 18-year-old boys play Call of Duty? All of them. And therefore, how many of them drive drunk? Some. How many hit their girlfriends? Some. How many flunk out of high school? Some. How many get fired at McDonald's? Some. Call of Duty is not the reason. Call of Duty, that's like saying the guy ate at McDonald's. I mean, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And the ESA exists to make sure that there is a counterpoint and that somebody else speaks up and says, no, games don't desensitize you. Nobody who plays Call of Duty thinks it's target practice for actual killing in real life. None of us do. And I'm not great at first-person shooters, but I'm very good at games that have a weapon. I'm good at aiming and shooting. I'm just not fast twitch. I still don't want to fire a real weapon. I don't want to kill anybody. It's just dumb. I love playing Deer Hunter. I don't want to kill a deer. I never would. I would never do it. But killing a virtual deer, who cares? It's not real. So it pisses me off, but the ESA exists to protect the industry from crazy talk like that. And when Sony doesn't support the industry, bad things potentially could happen to the games industry and hurt Sony more. And I think pulling out of E3, which is the number one fundraising, opportunity for the ESA is really dumb. Microsoft gets it, they're all in, they support it. EA kind of supports it, they host their event at the same time, and they pay their ESA dues. But to be honest, two of the bigger supporters of the ESA, Bethesda and Activision, kind of absorbed into Microsoft. So, I don't know. But I think E3 comes back next year. If it flops, it will be the last one. So it's really important that it succeed. And the answer to your question, I think that live audiences are really important. I think the spectacle of having a big event like that is important.
Then show me what you know. Oh my God.
I think that, the reason that Reggie is a celebrity is because he was on stage at E3 every year. I mean, Reggie, I get that he was kind of around, out and about, but you couldn't have picked him out in a crowd if not for E3. Now I will say the Nintendo Directs with the Wata back in the day, helped elevate. But does anybody even know what Doug Bowser looks like? I mean, he's never been on stage at E3. I know what he looks like, But I think Doug Bowser could walk down a hallway at E3 unmolested because he's not recognized, and Reggie can't. Reggie just put a book out because Reggie got famous from E3. People know who Jack Tretton is. They know who Kaz Hirai is because of E3. They know who Andy House is. They know who Sean Layden is because of E3. And they don't know who Jim Ryan is because he's never been on stage at E3 because he yanked him out. So not to say that Jim should do it just to be famous, but it's important for the brand to have big personalities associated with the brand. And to answer your question about live events, I actually think E3 needs to suck up to Jeff Keighley and get him back into the fold and pay him to produce the show and make it great. Because I think Jeff is a force, and I think Jeff is really the best tool for the industry to promote the industry. You need Jeff. Jeff is there. Jeff is passionate. He's a believer. And I don't care how much he wants, they should pay him. He's great. COVID was nominally the reason we didn't have it this year. The backstory that I heard, I can't validate this, is that at the time that they were required to reserve the convention center, that's right when Omicron was really bad. So kind of November, December of 21. And nobody could figure out if Omicron, if you remember, you could look this up, deaths started to go right back up. It turns out in retrospect that the deaths that happened were mostly unvaccinated people or really high risk people. And it scared enough people into getting vaccinated that we developed kind of that herd immunity, and the death curve flattened back out, and infections are still bad, but people aren't dying the way they were dying. But by the time that that ESA got to where they felt comfortable maybe hosting E3, it was more like February, and it was too late to rent the convention center. It had already been rented out for the week they needed it, and it's too big a production to say, oh, we'll just go to Vegas or we'll just go somewhere else. So I think they just got stuck. They had to make a several $1 million spending decision that would have been sunk costs if they had ended up having COVID back on the rise. Now I think everybody's comfortable that while there will be other variants this fall, and we will in fact see some deaths go back up, the herd of unvaccinated people is winnowed out a bit. The vulnerable ones are dying, and the ones who aren't dying are hardy enough that they're probably not going to die. And we're going to have modest death, and this is going to turn into the flu. It's going to be like all of us who get flu shots every year. We're going to get booster COVID shots, and we're going to live with COVID the rest of our lives, and we're going to be okay. that's what it's going to be like next year for E3. So I think E3 is back. I am hopeful that Sony figures their out and decides to to embrace ESA and embrace E3, and either Jim Ryan or his successor gets on stage and becomes famous. Doug Bowser, by the way, is an awesome dude. He is much more fun than Reggie, and he's much nicer than Reggie ever will be. So I look forward to Doug Bowser being on stage. And Nintendo's actually doing everything right now for the first time in 5 years, 7 years. Ever since the Wii U was announced, Nintendo kind of had bad times, and the Switch has been awesome, and the game cadence has been awesome. So I can't wait. Next year is going to be good. People, whine about what's coming out this year for Switch. It's like Bayonetta and Pokemon. But next year, you're getting Zelda. So it's going to be good. And next year, probably before E3, but they'll probably delay it again. You're getting Zelda, and I keep busting Doug's chops about this, but there hasn't been a Mario Kart for the Switch. I mean, the last Mario Kart came out for the Wii U. It happened to be on the Switch, but it came out for the Wii U. So we're due. I mean, it's been like 6 years since Mario Kart, I think. 6 or 7, 15? Yeah, 2015, 7 years. So we're ready. We're ready for Mario Kart. Mario Kart 9, come on, that's enough. Mario Kart and Zelda in the same year, oh my God. Okay, hope that answers your question. And yes, I miss them. As you all know, I have a legendary party, and I can't have a legendary party if everybody isn't in my town. So next year I'm gonna have a legendary party. Shane's been to every one of them, and he'll be to this one again. And if you're a Patreon patron, you're gonna have an opportunity to come to the party as well. So sign up for Patreon and book your tickets to LA next June. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. I hope you're watching real time as either a Patreon patron or as a YouTube subscriber, or link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account so we get paid. Any of those things is great. If you're watching it a week late because you don't have money or you don't care to support Shane in his efforts to make me famous, then please follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter. See you next week.